Welcome to In Conversation with Inside Perspective, the podcast with exceptional leaders talking about everyday leadership experiences. Let's jump in. LJ, Lauren Joyce joining me today. What an absolute pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, a strategist, excellent storyteller, I know this from my own experience, and leader who has spent your career helping organisations distill complex messages. That's not an easy skill, for sure, and I know that you do it in a way that helps them to have maximum impact. So I'm really excited to have your expertise here today.
Thank you.
And I think after years of being able to do that with others and working at an executive level, having a huge impact in your industry with leaders and other partners in the industry, I know that you have also now stepped into a new chapter in your career. So really keen to hear more about your business, Gun for Hire, as we speak today.
Yeah, thanks, Kaz. It's I really appreciate the setup there and the reflection of where I've been so far and now where I'm at. I think it's always confronting when you hear somebody else talk to you that way, because I think when you're in it, you're just kind of doing the job, right? You're doing it to the best of your ability, and when something works and you connect with somebody one way and that it enables them to be a better version of themselves or to deliver more than they thought they were capable of, then you try that again with somebody else. And I've always been very much a person that's driven by human insight, whether that be in responding to briefs from my clients or leading a team and really understanding what's going on for individuals and then working out the best way to motivate them and point them in the right direction to help us get the outcomes that we need for a business. And it has been a really rewarding experience getting to the point that I am now. And as you say, I've just recently branched out by myself, have my own business, Gun for Hire, and that was born out of the desire, I suppose, to be closer to the people that I am having an impact on and helping them to positively impact their own business. And it actually came as a result of I was having a cup of tea with a friend. Those who know me are familiar with the fact that I pretty much always have a cup of tea in hand. So I was having a cup of tea with a friend, and she's a graphic designer, and I asked her about a client that she told me about a couple of months earlier, and she said, she is just doing so well. She has implemented all of my recommendations, and every time she has a new idea for how she can implement the work that we've done together, she sends it to me, and her business is just growing and growing. And the way that my friend Mel spoke about the impact that the work she had done was having on this woman's business just made me think that's what I want. That's what I want to be able to do. And setting up my own consultancy is enabling me to do that, work much more closely with the individuals that need advice and with whom I'm able to put recommendations in place that can impact their business quickly and that will then have an impact on those individuals' lives.
It's so interesting as I hear you speak. It's funny because I'm resonating with what you're saying and it's making sense to me. And I'm thinking, you know what? And that just sounds like the LJ that I know in a corporate sense, with all of the team that you've led and the work that you do with them. And what's standing out for me is that didn't happen by accident. You were very intentional about the leader you wanted to be, how you wanted to show up, the difference you wanted to make. So it feels like, yes, you want to do this work making a difference. Actually, that's always been who you are in my experience.
Yeah, it's I think it's a rare opportunity to be able to get the time to reflect on your career or how you've ended up in a certain place in your life. And so I was made redundant from my role in December last year. And so across the summer period, I had a good 2 months of just clearing my head and resetting and a lot of time to reflect. And something that really blew me away when my redundancy was announced was the response that I got from people that I'd worked with, immediately prior that I was currently leading, but also people I'd worked with 10, 15, 20 years earlier in my career. And I think, redundancy is a personal thing and everybody's experience is different. But for me, it was equally the most shocking moment in my career and most gratifying, because suddenly it became clear to me that this intentionality that I had led with really did create a leadership shadow that had impacted a lot of people, and that people felt compelled to reach out and let me know about. And it was really, it really helped me realise that, my personal brand was very much around not necessarily my expertise, because I think that that's something that you can teach people and it's something that absolutely I had invested in over time, but it was more about the way I showed up. And I think back to, I've been the fortunate recipient of lots of different training over my career, but one of the most powerful pieces of training I had was probably 15 years ago, and it was called active listening training.
Beautiful.
And when I think about it, all the people in the room at the time were probably 5 years into our careers, and we had this amazing people and culture leader at the time who she just had the most incredible energy, and she filled the room with excitement around teaching active listening. And it was a skill that I just have continued to use right through my career and my personal life. And it was very much about being present in the moment and hearing what people were saying to you, not just letting the words wash over you. And that served me incredibly well in how I've led people, how I've engaged with stakeholders, how I engage with clients now. Because a lot of the time what somebody writes on a piece of paper or answers a formulaic brief with isn't actually what's going on. It's the things that are underneath and that come out through probing questions or through intently listening and picking up the other cues, not just the words that are coming out of their mouth. And I believe that learning that skill relatively early in my career set me up to be the type of leader that I am now.
It's interesting, isn't it, how much we communicate not through just the words we're saying, through our body language, through what we don't say, what we don't do. There's so many different factors, especially when we lead teams. Getting to understand people on a different level is so valuable.
Oh, absolutely. I think another skill that I feel like I'm still absolutely learning and refining is around feedback and finding different ways into a conversation with somebody, because what I've found is that when you combine the listening with observation around somebody's behaviour outside of a conversation you might be having about career development or, could be anything, when you combine the two, that becomes really powerful, because then you can reflect on, well, I heard you say this the other day, but then I saw this happen. Can you help me understand what was going on for you there? And that can start to unlock something that's a bit more insightful that then you can actually use with somebody to help them build a skill or become more aware of. Because generally, there's always going to be a reason for somebody behaving a particular way. And it could simply be that someone's never pointed it out to them before.
Right. their intention is usually good, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
that's the premise that I've been taught to come from as well. People show up wanting to do a good job.
That's
They're not
right.
trying to mess up or do something poorly.
Yeah.
And therefore, actually, it's kind
Yeah.
to let them know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And finding a kind way to say it. Like, somebody taught me the words, help me understand.
Yes.
And probably only 12 months ago, I feel like I started using those words, and they have been so useful for me in being able to open a conversation about a particular, occurrence or behaviour or situation without coming across as being critical. And it also puts me in a different mindset because I'm coming at it with curiosity and thinking, well, what can I learn from this situation? And this person, when they give me their explanation of whatever was going on, maybe that's going to give me a different perspective. And by having multiple perspectives of a particular situation, you can only progress because you're going to learn and maybe take, a piece of one person's perspective, my perspective, a third person's perspective, and then ultimately you'll edge forward. And if I extrapolate that out to a much broader opinion that I have about the media industry, and I'll get on my soapbox for a minute here,
Brilliant.
is that we have, I feel like, gone through an era of cancel culture. We're at the other end of that, and now we're in outrage culture. And people just are fueled by anger and other people's anger, and it results in the target individual being shut down, not necessarily cancelled, but they shut down quickly and then they apologise or they revert on whatever their opinion or position was that they put out into the world. Now, I don't think this is the right way to progress society. I think we need more conversation, not shutting down conversation, because without it, without diverse opinions, then how do you ever debate and progress the things that actually matter?
It's an important point, isn't it? I notice time and time again, especially on social media, there seems to be this desire that everybody needs to have the same opinion. What if it's okay to have perspectives and for sometimes two things to be true at the same time?
Yep, absolutely. And I go back to the fundamentals of why media came about in the first place. And you had your 4 estates of power, and media was there to help keep those other powers in check. And I don't know that the media does a particularly good job of that anymore, because we've moved into a moment in time where creators can say whatever they want unchecked, and a lot of that the way those creators get volume and therefore commercialize what they're doing is through outrage. So, yeah, I think if you have two parties, both as outraged as each other, fighting it out with each other, then maybe you get some sort of, progressive conversation. But I think more times than not, the result is that whoever opposes their opinion shuts down and ends up apologising, just so that, whatever their form of income isn't threatened.
Interesting. And this is an interesting theme, because I know that for you, this transition has brought up a lot of different reflections, of which I know we're going to explore a few today. I'm wondering, has your opinion of success changed through that transition? What did it look like then, and has it changed in terms of a definition now?
Yes, it definitely has changed, but I can't say that it's tied up in a neat bow with a perfect definition right now. And in fact, maybe that is the answer in itself. Maybe success now isn't reaching the pinnacle or a certain point in time or career. It is more about the process of becoming. Now, I'm not perfectly comfortable with that because I like things to be in boxes and tied up in neat bows. But as I said, I've been gifted this moment in time to be able to reflect, and so I'm still working through that. Now, what success used to look like for me was fairly stereotypical. It was climbing the ladder. It was earning promotions and privileges through the merit of my work. I was a firm believer in if you work hard and you deliver the result, then you'll be rewarded for that. One of the reflections I've had is that, yes, I ticked the boxes with my skills and with what I delivered, but actually it was the way that I showed up that had a much greater influence on me getting to the positions that I did in the corporate world. And certainly being in that world, success for me looked like the big title, the big remit, the invitations to, speak on panels or attend events with other people in similar positions of influence. Whereas now that I'm out of that world, it's been really confronting because those invitations stop and those opportunities to be surrounded by like-minded individuals also stop. And that's confronting because I haven't changed. My level of skill and ability to influence an outcome hasn't changed, but I no longer have the title. And so that has been and continues to be an interesting journey for me to go on. And as I look forward and think, what does success look like? It is absolutely about freedom and the freedom to choose when I want to work really big hours and really, really hard, and where I make compromises around the time I'm spending with my family or friends or on my own health or lifestyle. Having the freedom to be able to make those decisions for myself is absolutely what success looks like. But then there are realities that come with that as well. I want to live a life with financial freedom, and I want to be able to invest in the supports that my children need or in, experiences that my family want to do. There's a reality, and it's around how you kind of find a place or find an endpoint that both things can exist at the same time.
Thank you. I know that is, very heartfelt from you, and I'm really curious to unpack it a little bit further because I think there are a lot of people going through a similar journey, leaving, whether it's leaving a job that they've been in for years and therefore, they're kind of locked in the identity because they've been in the organisation for so long, whether it's the title, the status that comes along with that title, as you've said, sometimes the privileges that come along with that title, the opportunities that come along. I do think that there's a lot of people who experience this little jolt when unexpected change comes along. I'm curious, do you think there is a cost to what success used to look like that you maybe hadn't fully appreciated until recently?
It's a good question. I hadn't thought of it in terms of cost. I think what I've realised is that a title comes with status and an element of value that I just hadn't realised. And I remember having a similar sort of realisation when I first went into an executive position, and I remember being really resistant about taking up the office, as in like the executives had an office, and I was like, I'm not going to move off the floor. I'm not changing the way that I conduct myself. I'm still going to be talking to people, and then I realized with time, well, actually, practically I did need to be in an office because there was, my day was full of meetings with confidential information and so on and so forth. But then I also had underestimated the level of influence that comes with just the position. So, and I don't mean through authority and the ability to sign off, a higher level of budget or whatever it may be. It was more about when you walk into a room and you say something, then people are less likely to challenge you or call you out if you're, if your advice or your idea isn't necessarily the right idea.
Got you.
And so when I had that realization, I then led with what I think is a level of vulnerability that I didn't necessarily see in other leaders, not necessarily my immediate peers, but when I just look out into the leadership world.
Understood.
And so as an example, I would preempt the room and say, what we're going to go through today, I have an opinion on, I'll share my opinion, but that may be right or wrong and I want you to challenge me. So I would give permission to people up front. Again, that had nothing to do with me as an individual because I thought of myself as somebody who could be challenged and was open to feedback and would like to have that debate over the right solution. But that was something that the title, it was a norm that the title created that I then had to work around with my way of leading. So going back to your question around whether there was a cost to the position that I had, I think that there's probably things that I compromised in my own life, my personal life, that didn't feel like a compromise at the time, but upon reflection probably went a little bit too far. And that wasn't due to pressure from the business or anything like that. It was that when you are in a role, you're putting one foot in front of the other and you're doing everything you can do, maximize the impact you can have in that role.
Yep.
And so I think it had probably just run away from me a little bit. I'd got into the habit of working 70-hour weeks, without blinking an eye. I felt like that was normal. But now that I'm on the other side, I realize, well, that isn't the norm. And when I reflected before about what success looks like and that's having freedom, I may choose to work a 70-hour week now. And that's absolutely fine because it's on my terms and it's not necessarily a habit I'm going to fall into. Whereas when I think you've been working in a role for a long period of time and everybody else's norms also become your norms, it's hard to break.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is the difference is I now get to choose whether this week I need to do 70 hours versus actually every week is 70 hours.
Yeah.
And that is just not unquestioned.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so what changed for you when you stepped out and the title was gone and you started to have this feeling of, who am I?
So much self-doubt. Like it is amazing how quickly the voices in your head can start telling you that you're doing the wrong thing or you've not got the right direction. And it's amazing when you're in a role and you have a position description and the work just keeps coming. You can just keep putting one foot in front of the other, doing that work. And the thing you do have control over is how you show up. When you get out of that world and you're setting up your own business, no one's setting the rules except for you. And the rules keep changing depending on the last conversation you've had or the person that's accepted to have a coffee with you because there could be a potential to work with them, or the last, piece of coaching advice that you've read on LinkedIn, or, the person that you went for a swim with that morning and their opinion. And it's amazing how when you don't have the guardrails that are set for you by an organisation, it becomes much more difficult to filter that information and then work out what you should hold on to and what you should just let go.
How did you do that?
I don't think I've worked it out yet.
Brilliant.
I think one of the things I have absolutely intentionally done is I signed up with a coach who teaches you a system. And I thought, if nothing else, this system, which at the end of the day is words on a computer screen or a piece of paper, and again, that's still within my control, but that can keep me accountable. So if I'm feeling those moments of doubt, now I just go back to the system. Well, I'll just, I follow the system. These are the things that I do. And at the end of the day, the more I practice that system and the more I keep coming back to that, it will put me into a similar kind of, I suppose, flow as what you're in when you're within a corporate and the rules are set for you. So I think for me it is about, setting those rules and setting a system and being really diligent about sticking to that myself. I mean, I also have my people that I go to and say I'm having a bad day and do you think this is right? And should I throw everything out and change the way I'm thinking about it? And I probably have done that, changed my direction like 15 different times. One thing I am very certain of is that I want to be running my own business and I want to be having that freedom. Like, I'm very clear about that. And so how I achieve that endpoint is that's probably what I'm grappling with every day. So I don't think I've made the wrong choice in terms of where I'm going, and I'm certain in that. And my family really support me in that. How I end up there is the thing that I doubt and question and wonder about. One of the pieces of advice that I've heard in founder circles and that I am slowly doing is to keep a wins folder.
Beautiful.
Or list of notes, and you just keep adding to it. And on those days you go back and you go, okay, that day I was actually, my win for the day was that 3 people accepted, were open to having a conversation with me about some work. Yep. Or the win might have been that I helped a client achieve, get further down the process of a sales funnel than they've ever got before. There's absolutely been wins along the way, and I have to remind myself that I got into this so that I could help those people, so that I could have an impact on them and their businesses.
It's certainly something that I've heard you talk about before, is this desire to help people. And even just earlier you were telling me it just feels almost like a calling, to be doing something that helps people. And I kind of reflect on what a strength that is of yours. I'm thinking about your weekly shout outs, which I know many people see on LinkedIn. That feels like a real genuine LJ kind of thing to be doing. And I'm just wondering, whether that's a theme that's really helping you, is really becoming aligned with your strengths and who you are to others, at least, even if it's not yet to yourself.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think I started those shout outs with my team in my previous role, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And the concept behind it at the time was that I was bringing together a disparate group of functions, and it was this new function within the organisation. So these leaders of each of the different disciplines had worked together on things, projects across the business before, but they hadn't worked together as a leadership team.
Got it.
So there was that going on, and then bringing the broader team of, I don't know, maybe 100, 150 or so people together to be part of one team was also really important to me. There were some outliers across the team where we had like smaller disciplines of maybe groups of 3 or so, and I wanted them to feel like they had the support of a much bigger team. And so I created these weekly shout outs, and the concept was that I would do the shout outs, but alongside the other leaders. So sometimes we would interchange. And it was just about reflecting the behaviours we wanted within the team, and also to encourage this behaviour of recognising achievement, and that achievement didn't have to look like the classic kind of hitting your KPIs or, the classic kind of criteria that you look at on a piece of paper. So that's how it started. And then it continued to kind of, it got bigger than Ben-Hur, it felt like at the end. And it was about recognising, again, we maintained that it would recognise the behaviours that we wanted across the team, along with outstanding work, because towards the end, the entire industry was in disruption, and it was becoming harder and harder for people to do the jobs that they were used to doing. They had to innovate and find ways to still deliver the quality of work that they wanted to deliver, but with less resource. Yeah, over time, it was about kind of spreading that positivity and the recognition that success or achievement didn't always have to take that that stereotypical or traditional form.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, it actually worked. I carried it forward. So it worked to bring together that first team, and then the team almost tripled in size. And I think there was maybe a new cohort of leaders. Another 6 leaders came into the team. And so it worked again to bring those two kind of groups of leaders together and their broader teams. And now I see it as a way to recognise the people who I'm seeing as my extended team that are helping me to build my proposition and, giving me advice along the way. And also, the clients that I'm working with and them trusting in me, and me being able to shout out maybe their employees or the people that have allowed me to come in and have an influence and therefore taught me something more about leading or how to run my business. So it blows my mind, but every week it is, I've decided to run my business on LinkedIn, and every week it is my most engaged content. People love it. And in fact, somebody in the Netherlands, I've now got all of these Dutch followers because someone in the Netherlands stole the idea, shouting it out, saying, I've stolen this idea from Laura and Joyce. And it was all written in Dutch. I don't know. I mean, luckily there's Google Translate. But yeah, I can't understand some of the comments that I'm now getting, but I love that others have lent into the positivity.
Well, this feels like Leadership 101 here right now, is impact on others and changing other people's behaviour. Have you felt a shift in leadership, having left an organisation, starting your own business? Has leadership changed for you, or is it just the context?
I'm still working it out because it is something that I didn't anticipate that I would miss, but I am really missing. And I think it all comes back to that word impact, because I felt as though I had achieved the positions I had based on merit. I didn't realise how much of my job was leading and was influencing through the way that I led.
Yeah.
And how much of that I loved.
Yeah.
And so now that I'm not doing that, I don't have the opportunity to lead in the same way. I am really, really missing it. When other people reach out to me and, ask for advice or they want coaching, I've certainly lent into those conversations. What I've found with my clients is that they will come to me for one thing, but it ends up morphing into a relationship where I am in more of a coaching position, or they're opening me up to the broader team so that I can have conversations with their team that allow me to impart that leadership advice. I think the piece of the puzzle that I still haven't worked out how to deliver on for my own gratification is that bringing together, is seeing that kind of meshing of individuals who don't necessarily think they fit together on a piece of paper, but then have this realization that they can be better together if they lean into their complementary strengths. And so I haven't quite worked out how I tick the box on that piece yet, but it will come.
So what you're describing is really missing the team environment. Is that what I'm hearing? That it's more the team and the leadership of a team rather than leadership and as a more generic sort of term?
Yeah, I think so. And I think one of my strengths that I've realised has been my ability to connect people. So I've always been really good at connecting dots. That's kind of my superpower. I'm a strategist. I can see the mess on the wall and the dots light up, and I can see what to connect and where the opportunity for growth is going to come from. What I didn't realise was that I also have that ability when it comes to people. So I can recognise an area for development in somebody and the person I need to pair with them to help grow that. So I think that, that's probably what I'm missing, that ability to, and I can connect people, within my network, but it's quite different to being able to orchestrate, for example, a project where I might put a combination of people on that project specifically because I know that they will come out of it as better leaders themselves, having worked together. So I don't have those opportunities anymore, which is challenging. But again, I think, my beliefs about what the future of work look like are that we're moving towards a much more entrepreneurial world where organisations are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. There will be more fractional teams that are brought into organisations for periods of time to solve specific problems.
I agree.
And so perhaps, into the future, there is a model where I am working with other guns for hire that is about bringing those individuals together to have a big impact on an organisation for a period of time, as opposed to, that permanent employee situation that I've been in before.
I 100% agree. I see that future for the workplace too.
Yeah.
I think it's efficient, it's effective, it certainly helps monitor budgets and all of those things that we've been way too close to.
Yeah.
All of this conversation is making me wonder, back to the point earlier around who am I and that journey that you've been on from what I would describe, so please not your words, my interpretation, from doing to being. And that leadership that you've described around, it's the same and different and missing that kind of team piece. I guess, where do you land now on who is LJ?
It's a multi-million-dollar question, I think.
Thank you.
Look, I am still working that out, and I think what I'm trying to do is become comfortable with the idea that maybe, there isn't a perfect shape of what that person is, and that person will evolve over time. I think somebody said to me a couple of months ago, she explained to me this concept of, if you have two circles side by side, you have your professional identity and your personal identity. And I was certainly in a place where they were sitting right on top of each other. My entire personal identity was wrapped up in the professional me. And actually, I think it was you that said to me, can you think back to the last time you really felt like your true self? And I think you expected that I was going to say no, but I could answer that. And it was when I was with my group of ocean swimmers. I've reflected a lot on the reason I feel myself when I'm with them. And it's because you are in an incredibly vulnerable situation and you're having to trust this group of people that some of them are complete strangers to you. You know, like I came into this group not knowing anybody, and then I'm out, you know, a couple of kilometres into the middle of the ocean where there's absolutely sharks, where there's huge currents, where there's, you know, cold water and weather that can come over unexpectedly. And you've got to trust these people that you are with. So there is no point performing or putting on a face or pretending that you are anything else, because if something bad happens, you're stripped bare of all of that and you just have to attend to the situation. And so with them, I was always me. I was never performing a role or having to, you know, contain any sort of emotions or anything like that, because the vulnerability of the situation forced you just to be yourself, or forced me just to be myself. Whereas when you're in a professional situation, particularly when you've built a personal brand around particular qualities, of course I was always authentic to those, but I always felt I had to fit a particular mold to fit into that environment. When I think about me moving forward, I want to continue to show up in an authentic way, true to my values, but I also want to be less apologetic about the fact that on the weekend, or not even just on the weekend, that every day I'm wearing ripped off denim jeans, or that I'm wearing a white T-shirt that is from Kmart, you know, whereas I think when you're in the corporate world, there is a lot of just, again, it's about fitting into the norms of that world, you know, and it's about, there is absolutely an armour that I would put on every day around how I would fit into that world. And I think that I remember one of my team commenting to me once that she loved that I brought a lightness to the role. And that was really just the weekend LJ breaking through, you know. It wasn't, it was the, when I take the suit jacket off and would be sitting there in a T-shirt, that was me without the armour.
Well, it sounds like we're going to get more of the LJ without the armor, which is fantastic. More of weekend LJ.
Yeah. Yeah.
What advice do you have as we start to move towards wrapping up our conversation? What advice do you have for other people in this situation, whether it's forced through a redundancy, whether it's a choice they decide to make, whether they've just realized that they've got these two circles sitting on top of each other, as you so aptly described, the personal brand and professional brand. What would be your one tip for somebody in that situation starting to navigate their own journey of separating them and finding who they are?
I think it's a very practical piece of advice.
Great.
But I would say work with Claude and find a way you can ask Claude to teach you, in fact, and get Claude to act as your personal coach, and ask Claude to force you to create a set of receipts around the impact that you have had, and tell it to be very brutal with you. And if you're not coming back with receipts, and what I mean by receipts are the evidence of the impact that you have had, tell it to keep pushing you, because that is the most practical evidence, well, the most practical thing that I have done that has delivered me the evidence that I can move forward with setting up my own business. And it's also given me the document that I can go to every time I have a conversation with a potential client where they ask me, you know, what can you deliver, or, you know, how much are you going to charge me? I can go back to that document and say, well, the value that I'm going to deliver you might be, I don't know, 20% more than where you're currently at, or whatever. And then that will allow me to calculate my value as opposed to charging head hours. So yeah, absolutely determine what your value is, and don't think for a second that I can guarantee right now you will be undervaluing yourself. Go back, force it to interview out of you the results that you have delivered right across your career in every facet, whether it be business results, coaching humans, the impact you've had on the industry you're in. But once you've got that list of the results, your receipts, then that's something you can go back to, and that's how you start to frame yourself moving forward.
I really love that, and I've really enjoyed this conversation today. Genuinely, I've been on a similar journey, and so as you've been speaking, I could see myself in so many moments that you've been describing. You know, a corporate role with a title, with an illusion of what that needed to look like. I did a lot of work while I was in that space to identify who I was and what was the authentic, place I came from. And then when I left and started my own business, very similar to what you're describing, I noticed how I always wanted to play in my area of expertise. But my area is building programs or coaching, and there's a whole other part of the business requires my attention. Sales, marketing, invoicing, all of this stuff that you would, my laptop breaks yesterday and I'm like, I don't have an IT department to just go, please help me.
That's right.
I have to sort this out myself. And so, I've really resonated with what you've been describing, with this journey of how I think we all continue to evolve. Who am I? How do I decide to show up? Who do I want to be showing up as? And so I think you've really given us a permission to be who we are and to be where we are right now. And I think what that does for me is just remind us how important it is to be building who we are, not just what we are, regardless of whether we're in an organization, running our own business. Who am I? And what am I bringing to that situation? So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's been a fantastic conversation, and you summed it up so well then. It's about that discovery of who we are, not just what we are.
100%. Yeah. Before I let you go, anybody wanting to find you or Gun for Hire, LJ, where do they find you?
LinkedIn. So everything's on LinkedIn at the moment. And or you can reach out to me on email, which I'm sure you can put into the show notes. And
100%.
Yeah, I mean, the business really is focused on, as you heard, helping founders in particular to get the greatest that they can out of their business, and largely working with them on growth strategies. So, and I do that both in terms of the strategy and how it's written, and finding new revenue streams or ways for the business to operate more efficiently, along with talking about how the business shows up and how the founder as a personal part of that brand shows up to drive the results that they're after.
Well, thank you for your time today, LJ. Good luck with this next chapter, and can't wait to see where it takes you over the next 12 months, 2 years, 5 years and beyond. So thank you for being such an awesome leader and human being.